The first sighting was brushed off as an illusion, heat shimmer on the horizon, a trick of the twin suns. Yet by dusk, half the settlement had gathered to witness what could no longer be denied. Down in the amber plains below New Caledon Ridge, the cubs were teaching human children to climb. Not wild beasts chasing prey, not predators at play, but young ursarids, massive, fur-covered creatures with intelligent amber eyes, guiding boys up the canyon walls with a care that defied every survival instinct written into their DNA. Commander Rylan Kane watched through a haze of disbelief, the wind snapping at his coat. The observation drones recorded everything, their lenses humming, but no footage could capture the unease pressing on his chest. The ursarids had always been dangerous, sentient in their own primitive way, territorial, but avoidant of humans. Yet these were not their elders. These were cubs, barely past weaning, communicating in gestures that felt human. He keyed his calm, "Holt, tell me we're not seeing what I think we're seeing." Draven Holt, his second-in-command, replied with quiet awe from the observation post below. "If you're thinking they're teaching coordination and safety to our children, then yes, Commander. You're seeing it." Rylan closed his eyes for a long moment, jaw tightening. "Get the council on the line. They'll want to know immediately." In the settlement, word spread like fire through dry grass. Fathers pulled their sons inside, mothers wept and prayed. Children spoke of voices in their dreams, deep, soothing tones guiding them toward the cliffs. Some of the younger ones disobeyed the lockdown, sneaking out at dawn to meet their furry tutors again. And the cubs waited for them, patient, gentle, almost proud. By nightfall, the council transmitted its first order: containment. Inside the command tent, under the blue wash of holographic light, Rylan replayed the drone footage again and again. Each frame deepened his dread. The cubs weren't just mimicking behavior, they were shaping it. He saw patterns in their movement: repetition, reinforcement, reward. Learning, yes, but also teaching. Draven entered, his uniform streaked with dust and rain. "Sir, we ran the scans. The cubs' neural signatures have spiked, like an evolutionary surge compressed into days. We've never seen this level of cognitive activity in a non-human species." Rylan leaned over the hollow table. "And the children?" "Same spike," Draven said softly. "When they're near the cubs, their neural frequency synchronizes. It's not telepathy, it's something more primal. Empathic resonance." The word lingered in the air, heavy and dangerous. Rylan rubbed the bridge of his nose. "The council won't understand that. To them, this looks like contagion." Draven hesitated before speaking again. "Maybe it is. But maybe it's evolution, Commander. Maybe this is what the planet does. Merges what it touches." Outside, lightning split the clouds, revealing the ridge where the children had climbed earlier. For a moment, Rylan could see small silhouettes against the glowing cliffs, human and ursarid, side by side. He remembered the first day he set foot on this world, 20 years ago, when it was nothing but stone, silence, and the promise of a future. Humanity had come to tame it, to mine its ores and build its colonies. But he had always known, some planets refused to be owned. The tent flap opened, and a new presence entered: Solon Price, the council's liaison. Every inch of him was precision, crisp uniform, unreadable eyes. "Commander Kane," he said in his smooth, bureaucratic tone. "You've been slow to respond. The council is concerned." Rylan straightened. "We're still analyzing data. No confirmed threat yet." Solon's expression was almost pitying. "You're missing the obvious. Influence is the threat. If those creatures are altering our children's behavior, they're compromising our species' autonomy." "Autonomy?" Rylan's voice was flat. "You mean control?" Solon stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Commander, the ursarids were supposed to remain isolated. Now their young are crossing into human territory and teaching. You know what that implies. The next generation could identify more with them than with us." Draven spoke quietly. "Or it could mean we finally learn coexistence." Solon turned his gaze to him, sharp as a blade. That's not the mission, Lieutenant. The Council didn't spend 3 decades colonizing this planet to start sharing it with talking animals. Rylan's fists clenched, but he said nothing. He knew the truth. Any hint of cross-species empathy would terrify the Council. Fear was their default defense. And now that fear would dictate every order. Solon continued, effective immediately, the Council authorizes capture and containment of all Ursarid young within the Northern Valley. Any human child found associating with them will undergo neural assessment. You'll execute at dawn. Rylan's silence stretched too long. Solon's eyes narrowed. Is that understood, Commander? Yes, Rylan said finally, voice hollow. Understood. When the liaison left, the tent fell into a heavy quiet. Draven looked at Rylan, disbelief in his eyes. You're not actually going to? No, Rylan said, cutting him off. But they'll expect us to. He turned off the hollow feed, plunging the room into darkness except for the faint glow of the storm outside. Tomorrow we'll go out there ourselves. I need to see them up close, understand what they're trying to do, before the Council burns this planet to cleanse its conscience. Draven nodded slowly, the unspoken risk understood. As Rylan stepped outside, the wind howled across the plains, carrying distant echoes, soft growls, childish laughter. The line between the two was blurring, a melody of two species converging. He couldn't help but wonder if they were witnessing not contamination, but creation. He looked to the horizon, where faint shapes moved beneath the twin moons, cubs and children, climbing side by side under the watch of an alien sky. For the first time in years, Rylan felt both fear and awe mingle in equal measure. The cubs were changing, the children were following, and somewhere deep inside him, he feared Solon Price might be right about one thing. Once the connection was complete, humanity might never be the same again. The wind carried a low rumble from the cliffs, almost like a heartbeat, steady, ancient, alive. Rylan listened, unsure whether it was the planet itself or something new awakening within it. He didn't yet know that this moment, this fragile balance between fear and wonder, was the beginning of a transformation no council could ever contain. The night before the operation, the storm rolled over the plains like an ancient beast. Thunder shook the settlement walls, and the wind howled through the steel corridors. Commander Rylan Kane stood at the observation deck, watching the lightning illuminate the distant cliffs where the cubs had gathered. Each flash revealed faint shapes, massive, gentle forms moving among the stones, guarding something unseen. He couldn't sleep. The council's orders gnawed at him, heavy and wrong. Behind him, Draven entered quietly. The younger man's expression carried the same exhaustion that haunted every officer stationed on New Caledon. Command says the capture teams are ready, he said. They're waiting on your word. Rylan didn't turn. And the children? Secured in the lower quarters. They're terrified. Some keep asking for the cubs. Rylan finally faced him. They think of them as friends. Draven hesitated before replying. They are, sir. The words hung between them, fragile and forbidden. Rylan had seen friendship forged in war, in isolation, in the quiet despair of frontier life. But never between species. The Ursarid cubs had shown no violence, no instinct to dominate, only a desire to connect. And yet, the council saw contamination. To them, empathy was the most dangerous infection of all. Rylan's voice hardened. We go at dawn. But we don't capture unless absolutely necessary. Observation first, engagement second. Draven nodded, understanding what wasn't being said. This was disobedience wrapped in procedure, a delay disguised as duty. When the storm broke at sunrise, the world looked scrubbed clean. Mud shimmered across the valley, and the cliff steamed under the pale light of the twin suns. The expedition moved out in silence. 3 transports, 6 drones, a dozen armed men. Rylan led from the front, his pulse steady but heavy. Each step into the valley felt like a step into judgment. Halfway down, their scanners came alive with movement. Draven pointed to the readings. 6 cubs ahead. Their heat signatures are stable, no sign of aggression. Hold formation, Rylan ordered. Through the mist, the cubs appeared. They were larger than he remembered, muscular, upright in posture, eyes bright with recognition. One of them, silver-furred and scarred across the muzzle, took a slow step forward. It wasn't fear Rylan saw in its gaze, but something deeper. Curiosity, perhaps even trust. Draven whispered, "That one's the same leader from the recordings." The children called him Luma. Rylan lowered his weapon slightly. Luma, the name felt strange on his tongue, too human for a creature born of alien soil. Without warning, one of the soldiers behind him raised his rifle. Target acquired. "Stand down." Rylan barked, but it was too late. The shot cracked through the morning air. The beam struck the ground near the cub's feet, exploding in a shower of molten dust. The cubs roared, deep, resonant sounds that vibrated through the earth. The soldiers flinched, ready to fire again, but Rylan threw himself in front of them. "Cease fire. Now." His voice was thunder. The cubs froze, their growls fading into low rumbles. The silver one, Luma, watched him, muscles coiled, eyes alive with intelligence. Then something unexpected happened. Luma turned and motioned with one massive paw toward the cliffs, as if beckoning them to follow. Rylan exchanged a glance with Draven. "He wants to show us something. Or lead us into a trap," a soldier muttered. Rylan ignored him. Weapons low. "We follow." They moved carefully through the canyon, the cubs leading the way. The air grew cooler, filled with a soft hum, familiar, rhythmic, almost musical. It was the same sound the children had mimicked days earlier. The path opened into a hidden hollow, luminous with bioluminescent vines. There, in the center, were the human children, unharmed, smiling, climbing across the rocks with the cubs' help. Rylan's breath caught. They weren't taken, they came willingly. Draven stepped forward, scanning. "Commander, their neural patterns are in perfect sync with the cubs. Look at this, heart rates, reflexes, coordination. They're communicating without words." One of the boys spotted Rylan and waved. "Commander, look what Luma showed us." The child leapt from one ledge to another, arms outstretched for balance. Luma followed beside him, mirroring every motion, guiding his landing with a paw. The gesture wasn't dominance, it was mentorship. The cubs were teaching cooperation, trust, balance. The same instincts that had kept their species alive in this harsh world. Draven's voice was low, almost reverent. "They're not teaching them how to climb. They're teaching them how to belong here." Rylan felt something shift inside him, a quiet understanding, heavy and bright. The cubs weren't changing the children into something alien. They were bridging the gap between species, blending instinct with reason, nature with nurture. The planet wasn't dividing them, it was uniting them. Before he could speak, the comm unit crackled. Solon Price's voice erupted through the static. "Commander Kane, report. Why haven't you initiated containment?" Rylan hesitated. "Situation under control. No hostiles." "That wasn't the question," Solon snapped. "The Council demands immediate results." Rylan turned his comm off. "No more interference." Draven gave him a wary look. "That's going to cost you your command." "Then it'll be worth the cost," Rylan said. At that moment, the silver cub approached him, slowly, deliberately. Its gaze met his, and Rylan felt something unspoken pass between them. Not words, not thoughts, but understanding. The hum deepened around them, resonating through the stone, the air, the blood in his veins. Then, in one fluid motion, Luma touched his paw to Rylan's chest. The hum intensified. For a heartbeat, Rylan saw flashes in his mind. Vast forests, buried memories of Ursarid ancestors, the same storms, the same cliffs, the same struggle to survive. The images faded as quickly as they came, leaving behind a single emotion, unity. Rylan stepped back, trembling. "They remember us." Draven frowned. "What do you mean?" "Not us, exactly," Rylan said quietly. "Something older. Something shared." Before either could say more, a roar tore through the canyon engines. Dropships. The Council strike force had arrived early. Solon Price's voice echoed through the speakers above. Commander Kane, this is your final warning. Withdraw immediately. All entities in that valley are under termination protocol. Draven's eyes widened. They'll bomb the whole site. Rylan looked at the cubs, the children, the cliffs glowing like veins of light. He knew there was no time left. We get the children out, he said. Now. As the first missiles streaked through the clouds, Rylan shouted for retreat. The cubs herded the children toward a tunnel carved into the cliffs. Luma lingered, watching Rylan one last time before vanishing into the shadows. The sky erupted behind them. The world trembled. Dust and flames swallowed the valley, erasing the fragile peace they had witnessed. When the smoke cleared, Rylan stood amid ruin, heart pounding. He didn't yet know whether the cubs or the children had survived, but one truth burned in his mind, unshakable. The Council hadn't just destroyed a threat. They had declared war on evolution itself. The valley still smoldered from the Council's assault. Ash drifted through the air like snow, and the once luminous cliffs of New Caledon stood blackened, their glow extinguished by fire and fear. Commander Rylan Kane walked among the ruins in silence, his boots crunching over charred stone. The cries of the children had faded hours ago, replaced by the low hum of the emergency drones still sweeping for life signs. He could not bear to look at them. Every pulse of light, every scan returning negative, was another failure carved into his conscience. Draven followed close behind, his uniform scorched, his face drawn. Nothing. No cubs. No children. Rylan stopped beside a scorched tree, its bark fused into glass. They're not dead, he said, though his voice was hollow. They wouldn't go down this easily. Draven didn't argue. He had seen what Rylan had seen. The way the cubs moved before the bombardment, leading the children into tunnels hidden in the cliffside. They had planned for this. Somehow they had known. Above them, the Council's gunships circled like vultures. Solon Price's voice came through the calm with his usual, bloodless composure. Commander Kane, report. Is the valley secured? Rylan pressed the transmitter. The valley is in ruins. No sign of hostiles. Excellent, Solon said. Then you may return to base. Extraction teams will begin sterilization protocols within the hour. Rylan hesitated. That's unnecessary. There's nothing left to sterilize. There's always residue, Solon replied. We can't risk contamination. The line went dead. Rylan stared into the smoke-choked horizon, fists clenching. Residue. That was how the Council described anything beyond its control, living or dead. It was all residue to them. Draven glanced at him. We're not going back, are we? Rylan looked at the cliffs, remembering the hum, the sense of connection he'd felt when Luma touched his chest. No, he said quietly. We're going to find them. They descended into the lower canyons, where the ground still steamed from the bombardment. The deeper they went, the quieter it became. No wind. No echo. Only the faint drip of water from fissures in the rock. Draven activated his wrist beacon, casting a cone of light ahead. What they found there made both men stop cold. Symbols. Dozens of them. Etched into the canyon walls, glowing faintly blue beneath the soot. They weren't random. Each mark corresponded to a known Ursarid communication glyph, but intertwined with them were human letters, clumsy yet deliberate. Together they formed phrases. We climb together. Trust the path. The storm teaches. Draven whispered. The children wrote this with them. Rylan's voice was low. No. They wrote it as one. A faint vibration pulsed through the ground. The light from the symbols brightened, like a heartbeat answering itself from deep within the cliffs. Then came the sound, soft at first, then growing, a familiar hum that reverberated through stone and flesh alike. Rylan's pulse quickened. They're close. The sound guided them into a cavern, wide and alive with dim, organic light. The air shimmered with warmth, and the walls pulsed faintly, as if the entire place was breathing. There, standing at the center of a glowing pool, was Luma, the silver cub, now larger, its fur laced with streaks of gold and cobalt. Around it stood the missing children, alive and unharmed. They looked different, taller, stronger, their eyes reflecting the same bioluminescent glow that radiated from the cubs. Draven froze. What happened to them? Rylan stepped forward slowly. They evolved. The children turned to him, smiling faintly, and one of them, Theo, the boy from the recordings, spoke. His voice was calm, resonant, older than it should have been. "We're safe, Commander. The cubs protected us." Luma lowered its head slightly, meeting Rylan's eyes. That silent, wordless connection returned, images flooding Rylan's mind in an instant. Fire. Fear. Flight through the tunnels. But beneath it all, a deeper current. Unity. Not submission or dominance, but merging. The cubs and the children had shared something, memories, instincts, awareness itself. Draven's voice trembled. "This isn't evolution, Rylan. It's integration." Rylan's reply was barely a whisper. Maybe that's what evolution always was. Before they could speak further, a burst of static cut through the air. The comlink came alive with Solan's voice, harsh and impatient. "Kane, your signal's been traced. Extraction drones inbound. I suggest you clear the area unless you intend to share the fate of your subjects." Draven looked at Rylan. "We can't stop them." Rylan stared at the children, at the cubs surrounding them protectively. "No," he said, "but maybe we can buy them time." He turned to Luma. "You can get them out, can't you? Deeper, where the council can't reach." The cub's massive head dipped once in acknowledgement. The hum intensified, filling the cavern like a living heartbeat. Rylan felt it resonate in his bones, a farewell, a promise. He drew his weapon and turned back toward the tunnel. "Draven, set the charges. We'll block the entrance after they're through." Draven hesitated. "If we do that, we'll be trapped here." Rylan's eyes didn't waver. "Then we'll hold the line." As the cubs and children disappeared into the glowing tunnels, the first council drones appeared at the mouth of the cave, lights cutting through the darkness. Rylan and Draven opened fire, not to win, but to delay. The air filled with smoke and echoes, each shot buying precious seconds. When the charges detonated, the explosions sealed the tunnel with a roar that shook the earth. The drones were obliterated in a wave of molten stone. Silence followed. Smoke swirled in the dim light. Draven collapsed against a rock, coughing. "You think they made it?" Rylan sat beside him, breathing hard. "They made it, and they'll keep moving. That's what they do." Draven gave a faint, incredulous smile. "You realize the council will brand us as traitors." Rylan's gaze drifted toward the sealed tunnel, still glowing faintly from within. "Then let them. They can't destroy what's already become part of us." Far below, the hum continued, fainter now, distant, but alive. It carried through the stone like a pulse, reaching upward, outward, beyond human comprehension. Rylan closed his eyes and listened. For the first time since landing on this world, he didn't feel like an intruder. He felt like part of something vast, something ancient and new at once. Above them, the sky rumbled with the approach of more council ships. The war was coming, but for the first time, Rylan understood what they were fighting for, not survival, not dominance, but the right to evolve freely, unafraid. He rose, gripping his rifle, watching the dust drift through the fractured light. "They'll come for us," Draven said quietly. Rylan nodded. "Then let them find nothing but echoes." The hum pulsed once more, deep and steady. The world seemed to breathe around them, and in that breath, Rylan heard a message without words, hope, shared and eternal. The connection hadn't been destroyed. It had only gone underground, waiting for the right time to rise again. The council's fleet arrived at dawn. Columns of ash swirled beneath their engines as metallic giants descended upon the ruined valley. The sky, once clear, was split by streaks of violet flame as landing crafts carved through the horizon. Commander Rylan Kane watched from a ridge overlooking the scorched expanse. His armor was cracked, his pulse steady. Draven stood beside him, leaning on a fractured rifle, eyes hollow but alive. They had survived the night, but survival felt like defiance more than fortune. Below, the council soldiers spread out in silent precision, scanning the rubble for signs of resistance. Drones hovered, their sensors whispering through the air. Rylan's comlink crackled. Solon Price's voice emerged again, sharp as a blade. Kane, your insubordination is documented. You are ordered to surrender for debriefing. The council is prepared to negotiate leniency if you cooperate. Rylan almost laughed. Leniency, he muttered, lowering his visor. That's what they call mercy after they've burned everything. Draven looked toward the sealed tunnels. You think they're far enough? They're still moving, Rylan said. I can feel it. The hum, faint but persistent, still resonated beneath the stone. It wasn't imagination anymore. It was rhythm, a pulse in the planet itself. The cubs and the children were deeper now, beyond council scanners, learning, adapting. Something was being born in the dark, and the council's reach couldn't touch it. Draven straightened, his voice low. They'll find the tunnels eventually. Rylan nodded. Then we make sure they find something else first. They descended from the ridge, slipping between the shattered columns of stone and half-collapsed metal hulls. Every step brought them closer to the council's forward line. The air hummed with static. The faint distortion of communication networks spread across the valley. Rylan tapped into the frequency, listening to Solon's cold, precise orders, search patterns, sterilization commands, talk of genetic anomalies. He whispered, they still don't understand what they're afraid of. Draven glanced at him. And do you? Rylan paused. Not entirely. But I think they're afraid of what comes after us. They reached a shattered drone, its power core still pulsing weakly. Draven crouched, prying open the casing with trembling fingers. If I reroute this, I can overload the valley's comm grid. Blind them for an hour, maybe two. Rylan nodded, scanning the horizon. Do it. As Draven worked, the comlink hissed again. Kane, Solon said, his tone colder now. Your position is known. The council's patience is limited. You were chosen for your discipline, not your sentimentality. You cannot save them. Rylan didn't respond. He watched the soldiers move below, a silver tide advancing methodically through smoke. He remembered the cubs' luminous eyes, the way they had guided the children through chaos without fear. The council called it contamination. He called it progress. Draven's voice broke through the tension. It's ready. Activate it. He did, and the valley erupted in white light. A low-frequency pulse rippled outward, knocking drones from the sky, frying communications, turning sensors blind. The fleet above flickered like candles in the wind. For a moment, the world was silent again. Then came the retaliation. From the flagship, an orbital lance struck the valley floor, vaporizing everything in a perfect line of destruction. The shockwave hurled Rylan and Draven against the rocks. Dust filled the air, choking, burning. When the light faded, the entire front line of the council's advance had been erased, along with most of the valley itself. Rylan coughed, dragging himself upright. His armor was cracked open, and smoke poured from his helmet's vents. Draven lay a few meters away, blood streaking his temple. You still breathing? Rylan rasped. Draven managed a grin. Barely. The ground trembled again, not from another bombardment, but from below. A deep, resonant sound rose through the rock. The hum. Louder now. Steadier. It filled the air like a living pulse, merging with the wind, the ruins, the beating of Rylan's own heart. Then the earth cracked open. Light burst from the fissures, spilling into the shattered valley. A radiant blue and gold glow. Shapes emerged from the dust. Massive forms, sleek and luminous, their eyes alive with intelligence. Not cubs anymore. Not even beasts. Something beyond both, graceful, towering creatures that moved with calm purpose. Around them, human silhouettes appeared, grown, radiant, their eyes mirroring the same living light. The children. Draven's voice trembled. Gods, what are they? Rylan didn't answer. He didn't need to. The question had already been answered in his bones. They were the bridge between species, between evolution and empathy. Humanity's next step had arrived, and it had been born in the shadows the Council tried to erase. Above, the fleet repositioned, their targeting arrays locking onto the new life below. Rylan turned toward the ridge, spotting the flagship, hovering like a dark sun. Solan's voice returned, strained with something that almost sounded like fear. "Kane, what have you unleashed?" Rylan lifted his gaze to the sky. "The future," he said simply. The creatures raised their heads in unison, a deep harmonic resonance, shaking the air. The sound wasn't aggression, it was communication. The fleet faltered, systems glitching as the resonance expanded, interfering with their targeting systems, warping their signals. The Council ships wavered, disoriented, their mechanical order dissolving in the face of pure, organic harmony. The resonance spread farther, beyond the valley, into the atmosphere itself, a living frequency, rewriting the silence of the world. Draven watched in awe. "They're not attacking, they're speaking." Rylan smiled faintly. "They're teaching." The sky burned with light, not from destruction, but transformation. The Council's fleet retreated in disarray, unable to comprehend the force they had awakened. Their systems failed, one by one, until the horizon cleared, leaving only drifting embers in the dawn. Silence returned, but it was a different silence, alive, charged with possibility. The creatures lowered their heads, and Rylan felt that same pulse again, that shared heartbeat. He understood now. They weren't replacing humanity. They were inviting it. Draven sank to his knees, tears cutting through the grime on his face. "Do you think the Council will ever understand?" Rylan looked toward the rising light. "They will have to. The future doesn't ask permission." He removed his damaged helmet, feeling the wind on his skin, the first clean air since the bombardment. Somewhere beneath the rubble, the hum continued, growing softer now, like a lullaby for a world being reborn. Draven exhaled slowly. "So, what now?" Rylan's eyes followed the departing ships fading into the clouds. "Now we wait. And when they come again, we won't be what they remember. We'll be something new." The valley glowed beneath the newborn sun, the remnants of war fading into shimmering dust. Humanity had witnessed its reflection in another species, and for the first time, it didn't see fear. It saw possibility. The hum persisted, a quiet promise beneath the wind, a rhythm neither human nor alien, but both. And in that harmony, the world began to breathe anew.